Welcome to DABCC Radio,
where smart people listen.
Virtualization and Cloud Talk,
Featuring cutting-edge solutions from the hottest companies around the globe.
broadcasting from the DABCC offices in sunny Sarasota, Florida.
Surrounded by computers, books, and Legos.
A Microsoft MVP, Citrix Charter CTP, VMware vEXPERT.
And your host, Douglas Brown.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DABCC Radio. We have a great episode for you today. We have ControlUp on the line with us, and they're doing some neat stuff. They've been doing some neat stuff for a long time, and they only get better and better. We have two of their folks with us. One of their rock star engineers is CTP, Trentent Tye, and we have an old friend of mine, Barry Flanagan, who's doing just a lot of amazing stuff over at ControlUp. So I'll let them introduce themselves, and with no further ado, let's just dive into this because this is a great episode, a great interview, great company, and they're also doing some neat stuff with IGEL too. So we'll discuss that and what Trentent has done and what have you. So without further ado, no more rambling from myself. Let's just jump into it. My interview with the folks at ControlUp. Okay, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's always such a pleasure to chat with you. I'm a big fan of ControlUp, and, well, with no further ado, let's just get into it, okay? So, where do we start? Let's do the intro. So, Barry, you've been on the show many times before, so maybe you can start. Can you tell us who you are? What are you doing over at ControlUp?
Yep, I'm Barry Flanagan. I lead America's sales and channels for ControlUp.
And Trentent?
Hi, happy to be on the show first time, so thanks a lot, Doug. So I'm a Senior Technical Evangelist with ControlUp, so part of my responsibilities is doing things like maintaining my CTP status and coming up with some cool solutions, so it's I get the fun part of the job.
Very cool, very cool. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of ControlUp, and I've had you guys on the show in the past, but it's been a while. So, of course, that year I took off didn't really help anything, did it? But I'm very happy to get you back on the show and share with what's new, and I know there's a lot new. So that being said, can you, for those who aren't familiar with ControlUp or haven't heard about you guys in a while, can you tell us who you are and, of course, bring us up to speed on what's new?
Yeah, so ControlUp, the way I like to describe it is we're a troubleshooting and fix tool that leverages real-time monitoring. And I don't lead with monitoring. Most people think of us as a monitoring tool, but the monitoring that we do is for a purpose, so you can troubleshoot and fix. And that purpose actually matters. A lot of monitoring tools say they help you troubleshoot, but ControlUp actually does.
So Barry, how is that? That's interesting because I've always seen ControlUp as something a little bit different than everyone else, right? And this is sort of what you're saying. Can you describe how it does compare and contrast to, the typical, I don't want to say typical in a negative way, but, the traditional performance monitoring tools?
Sure. So, there's three things that I highlight. There are multiple differences, but I think there's three that matter the most to our prospects and customers. So the first one is most monitoring tools, especially in the EUC and the virtualization infrastructure space, are what I would call historical data reporting. And the reason I describe them is because of how they collect data. If you look at most tools in this space, most of them collect data every 5 minutes. Some actually don't even send actual metric values when they collect. They send averages of the metric values. So that can be a real challenge when you're trying to troubleshoot. I'm sure you've seen, infrastructure metrics and Task Manager or Perfmon. They tend to have a lot of peaks and valleys. When you're getting a collection every 5 minutes or even every 1 minute, you're going to miss a lot of those peaks and valleys. And a lot of times the key to troubleshooting is what's happening in those peaks and valleys and those metrics. So in ControlUp, in our console, we describe it as a real-time console. And the reason we do that is because we collect infrastructure metrics every 3 seconds. So 100 times more frequently than most EUC monitoring tools. And as I said before, the reason we do that is we really want to help you to troubleshoot. And if you're getting the values every 5 minutes, it's really hard to capture those peaks and valleys. We're going to capture those peaks and valleys with ControlUp that you're going to miss with a lot of other monitoring tools. So that's the first big difference. The second big difference is ControlUp, I said in the beginning, it's troubleshooting and fix. So to be able to fix, you have to be able to take action. And we have a lot of actions built into ControlUp. So we have actions at the host level, the virtual machine level, the session level, and the process level. And it's multiple actions. It's not just a couple. Like, you'll see some monitoring tools that let you start and stop a VM, but that's it on the VM level. Some of them will let you kill a process, but that's it. With ControlUp, you have a long list of actions available at each level. And to get specific on the process level, there's multiple ways to kill a process because sometimes the default way doesn't work. But you can also change a process priority, you can throttle a process, or you can change process affinity. And those are really important. And the second part of actions is we also have what we call script actions. We allow you to import PowerShell and VB scripts into our console and invoke them on objects at every level. So, and you can invoke them on multiple objects at a time. And we have hundreds of script actions available. So not all of them are to fix a problem. Sometimes they're to get more information on a problem, drill down, go deeper on a problem. So that's the second big difference, is the wide range of actions that we have. And that actually leads into the third big difference that we have is automated actions. So we've always had the ability to alert you when a metric hits a threshold or when an event is recorded in an event log, a number of ways that we can send you an alert. Well, we announced this last year at Synergy. We can now also take an action. So let me give you like an example scenario that highlights these three differences. So I talk to customers a lot, and this is a scenario that a lot of people can identify with. You have this line of business app that's really not a well-performing app, but the line of business got to have it. It's the only one that does what they want. They got to have it. And it intermittently locks up the CPU at 100% for 30 seconds. So when I tell this story to people, pretty much everyone I talk to can identify with that. Everyone's got that, one or sometimes multiple bad apps that do that. So let's start off with the first one, real-time data collection versus historical data reporting. If you're collecting data every 5 minutes, it could be difficult to capture that app that's impacting all the other VMs or all the other users if you're on a Citrix virtual app server or you're on a virtual desktop, because you got to hope that 30 seconds where it's peaking at 100% happens during the 5-minute data collection. And if your tool is averaging out the metrics, good luck capturing that. It's going to take you a really long time to find that. Of course, with ControlUp, because we're collecting data every 3 seconds, we're going to find that immediately. All right, so that highlights the first difference. The second one is on the ability to take action. So as I said, we have multiple ways to take action. So if you're in ControlUp, it's very easy to do root cause analysis and find that problem. But if we didn't have multiple actions at the process level, if we only had kill the process, that might be what you want to do. But that's not always the right choice. That maybe it's hogging the processor at that time because it's running something really intensive and very important, and you don't want to kill it. You want to get more information on. So with ControlUp, there's multiple actions at the session level as well that you can use to get more information. Like you can start a chat with a user. You can invoke remote assistance. You could, if their session were disconnected, you could RDP to the session. If it was locked down by group policy, you could actually kill group policy first, then RDP to the session, and then reapply group policy. Or you could take a session screenshot, and we have multiple ways that you can do that with the user's notification, without their notification, or with their approval. And all those are configurable by policy. And then once you decide what to do, say you decide after doing that and putting that problem in context that I don't want to kill it. What I want to do is throttle it. Let's reduce the impact it's going to have on other users, but allow that user to continue to run it because it's only going to lock up for a short period of time. So you have that option with ControlUp. And so that's across all those ways. And then on automated actions, if this is a consistent problem that recurs in your environment for one specific app, with ControlUp, you can build an automated action that says, for this specific process, if it hogs the CPU for more than 30 seconds, so it's at 100% CPU for more than 30 seconds, send the user a custom message to the console telling their app is misbehaving, then kill the process and restart the process. All right, and you can have that happen automatically. So now you've taken what would probably be a help desk incident. They probably call the help desk. It'd probably be some time of outage time, depending on how long it would take level 1 to get to level 2 and level 2 to respond. So you've eliminated that outage, and you essentially eliminated a recurring help desk incident. And we find that on average, the data shows that help desk incidents on average cost $74 every single time. So if that's a recurring problem in your environment, you now not only automatically fix the problem, you've eliminated a recurring help desk incident, which adds up to could be a significant cost savings for you. So those are the 3 things that I like to highlight. We have other things like guided troubleshooting. Our grid view, actually people find the grid view is very popular, where you can see multiple metrics and sort by them and easily customize them. Those are a couple other things, but those 3 things, real-time versus historical data reporting, built-in actions at every object level, and automated actions, those are the big differentiators that you don't get in most monitoring tools today, especially EUC monitoring tools.
Very cool. Trenton, anything to add there?
I think Barry did a great job covering it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, Barry, I mean, you can't argue with him, can you?
Yeah, nope.
He's the boss.
It's not my first rodeo.
Okay, so what does it take to install, guys, to get it in order to get to the point where you can collect this data and see the results?
So, Trent, you want to cover that one?
Sure. So ControlUp, one of the cool things about it is that our app is freely available from the website. So you go to controlup.com, there's a free download button, you click on it, and the executable downloads. And that's it. It is a portable app. You double-click it, and then you can start adding your machines or your hypervisor connections, and away you go. We're so confident in the ability to set up your environment for POCs, tests, or labs, or if you're going from one location to another as a consultant, that you can use ControlUp just to straight off the website, double-click, start adding objects into your environment, and start monitoring and managing these objects immediately. So we think that that's really cool, and I think that's kind of unique in our industry. There's not a lot of companies who have such a product like that, especially that's just double-click and go.
Absolutely. That's very cool. Yeah, that's something else I've heard, in great detail, how simple it is. So I wanted to ask. So you guys have had some IGEL integration, and I know you've been working on this for quite some time, and you showed it off at Disrupt, and probably before that, of course, but at Disrupt in Nashville and in Munich too, I guess. But in Nashville, you just had amazing feedback, and the booth was packed. Every day I wanted to come over and say hello, but it was always 3, 4, 5, 6 people deep. So maybe you can comment real quick about your Disrupt experience, and then talk a bit about this IGEL integration, what this is and what this means.
So I'll start off with the Disrupt experience, and then Trent can talk about how we, what the integration is. He's definitely the expert on that. So Disrupt was a great event for us this year. I love the venue, a really great audience, and the feedback from the IGEL, not only monitoring but ability to take action on IGEL endpoints, was extremely positive. And I've been in this business, Doug. You and I have been in this business a long time. We worked together quite a while together at Citrix, and generally when you have to work a trade show, you answer questions, get feedback, and then at some point, someone else goes and does a follow-up with them and tries to get a follow-up meeting. The unique thing for us at this event is people were so interested in what we did to bring our not only the ability to monitor IGEL endpoints, but actually take action on IGEL endpoints through our real-time console. People were asking us for the meeting and giving us let's look at my calendar right now. Let's set the meeting right now. I mean, that does not normally happen. Yeah, that actually happened multiple times at the event. So it's a testament to, a lot of them really love their IGEL devices, but they want more information on how they can use them more effectively. Correct. And find a lot of times, because as you know, when you're the front end of a solution, especially an EUC solution, the end user assumes the problem is whatever the front is. So in this case, now it becomes the IGEL endpoint. But the truth is, the great majority of the time, the problem is either on the network or somewhere on the back end. And being able to quickly isolate that, do root cause analysis, and fix that is very important. And now with ControlUp, because we do we provide you end-to-end visibility of your IGEL endpoints, and we can actually get additional information for those endpoints and take action to help you troubleshoot. That was a really, really popular solution. And I'll pass it off to Trent to talk about how it actually works and what the specific things that it does.
Sure, thanks, Barry. Yeah, that was great. So, one of the more amazing things when I think about IGEL is that these are endpoints that can be used to repurpose older hardware, right? So you take your existing infrastructure or your hardware that's been replaced, that's been cycled down, you get IGEL on it, and now that old hardware has new life, extending your original investment. It's saving you money, and you get a good performing endpoint out of there, because generally endpoints, new ones you buy today, are like these low powered devices that are made for silent operation and so on and so forth. And what ControlUp does to integrate into it is that we actually SSH into the device, and we pull some metrics from it. So we're completely agentless in this regard. You set up your SSH on your IGEL UMS, you add it into the ControlUp console, and then away you go. We have a custom partition that you can download off of our website, and instructions on how you can add it into the IGEL devices that you have. And then once that's done, ControlUp, you just right-click, you go connect, just as we always do, and you connect right in, getting your metrics. So we monitor the metrics on the device itself, CPU, memory, network, all the processes, so you can actually see your Citrix client, how much CPU it's consuming, and memory, and so on and so forth. So that's the gist of it from the monitoring standpoint. And we don't just do monitoring. Obviously, as Barry pointed out, we also do management. And what's exciting about this is now within the ControlUp console, you can right-click on your IGEL devices, and you get a list of IGEL actions that you can do. So these are management actions. You can reboot the terminal. You can send a wake-up command if it's sleeping. You can tell it to update the configuration from the UMS if you've done some configuration changes there, and you need them to get pushed out in maybe even a staggered fashion. So you can just group them in ControlUp and then just right-click on them, select them all, right-click on them, and then execute that action. So we also do machine details, where you can get a very detailed look of your machine. So, what monitors connected to it. Is there any devices connected to it? We can actually get an asset list of all your IGELs that are connected in through ControlUp. And we can also list the profiles that have been assigned to your IGEL devices. So if you're getting some, inconsistent configuration issues or perhaps some inconsistent performance, you can do a quick compare with ControlUp across all of your IGEL devices in just a few seconds with just a few clicks.
Oh, that's awesome. That's truly awesome. I absolutely love it. That's really great stuff. Can you maybe give us some use cases with the new IGEL integration and ControlUp, and how you can help some IGEL customers?
Sure, you bet. So we've already talked to several customers about where they think it can help them. But I'm going to share a story that's kind of near and dear to me when I was actually working in healthcare just a year or so ago. So we actually had a project to roll out some new endpoint devices, with card readers attached to them for tapping. And our challenge that we had with that is that Citrix was coming out with their 7X platform, or we were just migrating to it. And as we know in the Citrix world, Citrix is all about rapid releases. So at the time, LTSR wasn't out, and we weren't happy with what was available with like 7.7, 7.6, or whatever it was. So we wanted to stay on the current release platform until the next LTSR. So we were staying on the current release platform. We rolled out these endpoints. We configured some graphic settings that improved the performance of like ultrasound techs and perhaps some radiologists using Citrix's new build to lossless feature. And when we enabled it on the endpoints, we actually found performance just tanked. So all of a sudden users were getting artifacts, which is exactly the opposite of what lossless is supposed to be, and just general sluggishness on the devices. So these weren't IGEL devices. They were some other company, but the challenge was we couldn't see into the devices. Was the problem with the devices? Was it with the Citrix receiver on the device? Was it with the policies that we were applying? And obviously the only thing we could control was the policies. So we had to revert back to XenApp 6 style of policy and graphical settings in order to get these devices to work, where if we had the visibility into the devices, we'd be able to make that determination. Is it the version of receiver that's on there? Could we work with the vendor and ask them to supply one that was newer? Or was it the hardware, right? Was the CPU just at 100%, just unable to cope with what we were choosing to use for our users? And so this is a use case where now with IGEL, we can actually provide that information. We can actually take a look in, as Citrix comes out with new features, especially for Citrix cloud-based users. If you want to take advantage of those features, the big question is, how does it impact your endpoint, right? Is the problem, are you repurposing this old hardware, and are you enabling like H.265 support? And since the hardware doesn't support it, everything's going into software, and the hardware maybe just isn't sufficient to do it. We can now measure that impact, and we can now provide you that information so you can make an informed decision as to what action you need to do to either resolve the issue or whether or not it's an acceptable consumption of your resources of your endpoints. So with ControlUp and our IGEL integration, we provide this capability now, which I think is pretty much unique in the industry today.
And I'll add to that a story I recently heard from a customer that helped them. They had some random disconnects with their Horizon sessions running on IGEL Edge OS devices, and they were struggling to figure out what was causing these random disconnects. So they were actually testing ControlUp, so we got them to set up the IGEL integration so they could monitor down to those endpoints. And the thing that they found is the random disconnects were actually specific to one, and I don't remember the version number, but one specific version of the Horizon client. So if anybody that had random disconnects, most of them did not have it, but the ones that did, they would have random disconnects throughout the day. So with ControlUp, and being able to see down to the device level, they were actually able to isolate that to those specific devices, find out that it was specific to that version of Horizon. It was an older version of the client, and they were able to get that upgraded on the client, and that fixed their random disconnect. So, it gives you the ability to not only see what's going on, but help you isolate and do root cause analysis and find out. As I said earlier, in most cases, the problem is actually not on the Edge OS device from IGEL. But if it is, you can isolate that. And if it's not, it's incredibly useful, as you know, Doug, when you're troubleshooting, to be able to eliminate things. And that's what ControlUp helps you do. Our user experience capabilities within ControlUp with things that we have, like our app load timer, which allows you to track how long it takes your most important apps to load into memory, and our user input delay metric, and our ability to break down logon into multiple steps and identify exactly what's causing the logon problems. All those things are really helpful with ControlUp to do user experience monitoring. And anybody that's using Citrix or Horizon, the most common help desk ticket is usually it's slow. And I imagine for you guys at IGEL, you probably hear that a lot as well and end up getting blamed for it because it is the front end of the device. And with ControlUp, we help you do that root cause analysis, especially on user experience, identify those problems, the real source of the problem for the customer, and do it quickly.
I love it. Trent, what does it take for an IGEL admin to get this set up?
Sure, yeah, I touched on it just a little bit. Yeah. So we have a custom partition that you can download off of our website. You add it to your UMS, your IGEL UMS, and you set up a profile. We've got all the instructions on our website on how to do this. And then you push it out to your devices. And then once they have it, the custom partition just automatically activates. And then from there, you can, within ControlUp, you set up a Linux data collector, you add your devices. So we do require things like DNS needs to be resolving properly. Your IGEL devices need to be registering DNS. If you're Active Directory domain joined with your IGEL devices, then that's just a piece of cake. But for those customers who might be running IGEL as standalone devices that are not AD joined, you need to make sure your DNS is operating correctly. And then once that's done, you add your devices. You might get a pop-up within ControlUp saying it's an unsupported OS. For this release, you can just hit OK on that dialog box and just continue through it. And then once that's done, the devices show up in the ControlUp console, and they're available for you to both monitor and manage.
And I'd like to add one thing to that. Trent did a great blog on this where he not only explains how to set this up, he has a number of screenshots and animated GIFs on it, and you can find it at controlup.com/controlup-igel. Really easy to remember. That's controlup.com/controlup-igel.
I love it. I wrote that down myself.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Absolutely.
Add it to your email signature.
I will see if that's possible.
Yeah.
I don't think I control my own signature. So, hey Trent, what does it take to, I love the idea around this, the integrations and the actions and what have you. I mean, this is the power of what you guys do, right? So, so the UMS integration and management actions are very interesting to me. Any plans to add more in the future? How does this work?
Yeah, absolutely. We plan to add more. So right now we're connecting to the IGEL UMS through the REST API that IGEL provides. And this allows us to have download and go functionality within our products. So you don't need to use the IGEL PowerShell commandlets in order to do any other activities, as that would require dependency then. It kind of breaks the user experience. But we are looking to add more. The challenge that we have right now is the REST API. We've kind of explored it in its entirety for our management actions, and so we're looking at other ways to do some capabilities. When we were at Disrupt, we have customers asking, hey, we want to be able to send messages through this, as an example. And so we're investigating what that would require. And so we're going to work very hard on making that a reality for our customers and for our IGEL customers. So that way, they can do even more and more and more. And we're taking feedback as to what management activities you might want to do to further enhance the experience with ControlUp and IGEL.
Very cool. I like that messaging idea. Years ago, I always thought it'd be cool to have a little messaging system built into the ICA client. Remember that, Barry? We used to argue that one to product management.
Yeah. A lot of stuff like would help. The thing when you say ICA client, which you never hear anyone say that anymore, but one thing it reminds me of, back early in the early 2000s when we were both at Citrix, we used to have the most common error message that would come up on the client is Citrix fatal error. And it would happen for like any kind of network problem at all, any kind of high latency. It was the most common error would pop up. And I can just remember us begging engineering over many, many months and probably over more than a year to get them to make that message a little more meaningful and a little less ominous, because that was just the worst bet. Like, as an SE for Citrix at that time, the customer was like, I've got a fatal error. What does that mean? It sounds really, really serious. And a lot of times it's just, the end user was dialing in at the time, back in the early 2000s, sometimes people still had modems and they just lost their network connection.
ControlUp.com/controlup-igel/. Okay. I said I would pitch it. Yeah, that's great. That's great stuff. I just love this. I love what you guys are doing. I love how you're extending what IGEL does, right? And I mean, this is the whole idea of a platform on the front end, right? It's an operating system, and IGEL's the first to say that we're as good as our partners, right? And having a great partner like ControlUp is just absolutely phenomenal for us. And I
do want to add, Doug,
please.
One thing that's really amazing to me is how you guys have transformed the view of the thin client. I know you guys never say thin client anymore, and that there's a good reason that you don't. But back in the day, thin clients were not cool. But you guys, because of all the great features that you've brought to the endpoint or the edge device, you've really you made it exciting for people again. And that's the thing that was really great to see at Disrupt is the amount of energy around it, because it's an integral part of the solution and the capabilities that you bring, especially where now all the major vendors, Microsoft's going to WVD, and both Citrix with Citrix Cloud and VMware with Horizon Cloud are all working with WVD, and they're pushing everyone to move all this on-premise virtual infrastructure into the cloud. And you guys have been able to become a vital part of that new evolution that's happening in our business, and it's amazing to see how you guys have done it and been able to as you said, make it sexy and make it exciting.
Well, thank you so much. IGEL's been an amazing thing. I joined 3 years ago, and we were still, in that non-sexy age, right? And I like to explain it as, IGEL, the product itself has gotten better, of course. It's 3 years since I joined, but really the product itself is pretty much the same. There's been some new stuff added, some more security, scalability, 32-bit to 64-bit, a bunch of new stuff. But the operating system and the management tool were there. It was the story that we were able to tell. And one of the problems with thin clients is, especially if you're of anyone of age, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong, is that you think of it as slow and chunky. You think of it as something nobody would like. You would think of it as what the experience you first saw it with, right? And that might have been a while ago. Or it might have been one of our competitors that is slow and chunky, that isn't as flexible or scalable or secure or easy to use, right, and powerful. So once we were able to tell, Jed was able to craft a story about what the Germans built and tell that story with some great folks, right? And they looked at it, and I tell you, Barry, it was like, to me, it was like the experience I had in the late 90s when you start showing people Citrix. They're like, oh, my God, you can do this. And we were able to say to them, you know what, you don't need Windows on the endpoint. Put Windows where it belongs, and that's in the cloud, right, or in your data center, right? You don't need to manage it twice, right? We can be secure. It can be simple. It can, use your old hardware. You can do all this stuff, and it does work today, and people do want it, right? And once they saw that, once they started playing with it, this is what sold, this is what created the, this rise of IGEL over the past, 3.5 years, right? Which is telling that story of what can be done. I've always believed that a thin client, or a dumb terminal, as I used to call them, is the right thing for a remoting solution, right? After all, we're a mainframe, metaframe, right? Why would you put Windows on the endpoint? It never made any sense to me. So we're telling that story. It's saving people money. I just told this story at Disrupt with one of our customers, an IGEL community guy, Daniel, and he saved his company, a smaller bank, $2 million a year. That's insane. Yeah. That's insane. Wow. And they have a more secure, flexible solution that their employees like because they work, right? And, gosh, he got everything he ever dreamed of just by switching to IGEL and using a Citrix, Microsoft, VMware type of solution, right, a remoting solution. It's a better way to compute. This is what you and I believe for 20-some years, right, Barry? Now we just needed the endpoint to be there too. And solutions like what ControlUp brings to monitor and give us that, complete 360. This is what we've been working on for 30 years, or 25 years, right? So.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how, the story has changed, and it's resonated so much. That's really interesting to see. You can see one thing I felt like a Disrupt is this is going to become the next really big EUC event, because there's not that really big EUC focused events where you can get with a lot of people that are in this business, in this space, and been in the space a long time, and really, not only talk about what's available, but brainstorm about what could, be coming in the near future. And that's the exciting thing about Disrupt, is that you guys have brought all these solutions together, and it's the only big EUC event that I've been to recently that is not particular to one vendor either. One vendor on the back end, whether one EUC vendor, whether it's Microsoft or Citrix or VMware or Horizon, where all those vendors were there and talking about their solution, and all of them see the benefit of IGEL. For the other big competitors that you guys go against in the U.S., they don't have anything like that. They don't. Obviously they work with all those other vendors, but you don't see the kind of buzz and excitement around their solutions that you see around IGEL, and you don't see it as publicly, that support from the big three players in our space.
Well, I think, I totally agree with you. It's been an amazing ride. I think that those big three are seeing what IGEL brings, seeing what it brings to them, their bottom line, and their customers, right? At the end of the day, they're selling remoting solutions, which is, like I said, a better way to compute. And they can sell that, save the customers money, give them a better user experience for both the user and the admin by partnering with IGEL, right? And they see that and it's resonating. It's amazing. I think the other thing is that both Jed and Simon Townsend and everyone at IGEL wants to make IGEL disrupt, and this has been Jed's vision since day one. A lot of people laughed at him about this, right? Little IGEL is going to create a conference, but 3 years into it, Jed's been yet again proven right that he created this, and it's like you said, it's not just an IGEL, dog and pony show, right? There's a lot of great sessions there from great guys talking about things that might not be related to IGEL, and it's only going to get better and better and better. And I think you're right. I think that we're seeing the next version of, let's say, a BRI forum or a really great conference that's a lot of fun to be at. The thing I loved about Disrupt is I saw the core old Citrix group there. And I've always said that Citrix is a family. When I say Citrix, I mean your remoting in general, right? When I talk about the old days. And that group, that core group, the M7 guys, those, who I'm talking about, right? You see them at Synergies and Summits and VMworlds. They were all at Disrupt. And when I saw that, I said, okay, we they're here, right? We've made it. So it's wow. I'm sort of speechless about the whole thing. Been an interesting ride, Barry. Interesting.
Yes,
ride.
Absolutely.
So that being said, I have one more question for you guys. This is always sort of my last question. That is, the future. I love what you guys are doing. ControlUp has always been had great ideas. I know you work a lot with the CTPs and your customers and partners to find out what's really needed and not just a shiny bell or knob or whatever, right? What do you guys have coming? And anything else with IGEL? And what if somebody wants to learn more, what do they need to do? Things like that. What's next?
Sure. So I'll grab this one, Barry. So our next thing with IGEL is we're going to improve the user experience, at least with the ControlUp integration. So we're working with IGEL to embed that custom partition into the IGEL operating system itself. So that way you don't need to use the custom partition, which some people may not have licenses for, although I think as of 2020...
That changes April 1st, I'm pretty sure. I think that's the date, or March 1st, one of the two.
Okay, so IGEL has adjusted their licensing to really drop the tiers that custom partitions are available, so that's...
Yeah, in the past, in order to run a custom partition, you had to have the enterprise pack, but we've since changed that for reasons like this. To where the custom partition feature is in the base license. And for those who aren't familiar with the custom partition, just explain it real quick. So IGEL is a lockdown operating system, right? It's a traditional thin client style operating system. What you see is what you get. There's tons of agents and apps installed in it. But let's say there's something that's not installed. Let's say, for example, the ControlUp app. Or maybe ControlUp has a new app. We release our major releases once a quarter. And maybe they have something new, or maybe you have something within your company that's proprietary to you, right? It's a Linux app, you want to install it. You can actually create what's called a custom partition, install that piece of software locally onto the IGEL operating system. It runs in a little secure enclave, so to speak, and it's brought down to the machine. It works perfectly, and so it gives you that ability to have an operating system that's extendable, but still locked down and secure the way traditional thin client OS would be.
And that's actually an amazing technology. I mean, that's what's allowed this to happen.
Yeah.
But in the future, we are looking to integrate the bits directly into the IGEL OS, so that way there's no custom partition. It'll just be plug and play. Just add it into the ControlUp console. That unsupported operating system message I said you'll get in ControlUp today, that will be going away. We'll be detecting the IGEL OS, and it won't be showing that message, so it'll come as a completely supported operating system. And that will be coming in the future.
And I'll add a couple things to that are beyond what Trent's talking about on IGEL. One thing that we haven't talked about that actually came out about the same time as our IGEL integration is, in our version 8.1 is we did our Horizon API integration. So for a long time, we've had a Zen Desktop API integration where you can get information from the Zen Desktop connection servers and the brokers, and kind of back end and a few additional metrics on published apps. So we worked with VMware over the past year, and we've done the same thing now for Horizon. So we now have a Horizon API integration. So you can see information from your connection servers, and from your brokers, and there's some additional metrics that are VMware specific. So that's been really exciting for us. We have quite a few. We've always been more in the Citrix space, but over the last year or so, we've really started to get some real traction with Horizon customers, and that was one big ask. So we've been able to deliver on that. The other thing that's in 8.1 is we kind of changed. We haven't talked a lot about the ControlUp architecture, but we changed the back-end tools that actually collect the data. We call it the monitor. It's a service. We came out with a clustered monitor. So we've always been able to scale, but you had to architect when you got into really tens of thousands of endpoints that you're monitoring. With the clustered monitor, you can scale to hundreds of thousands of devices or endpoints or overall objects that you're monitoring. So that's a really big thing for us. And a couple of things that we have coming up in the near time. One thing that we've been working on for a while is Citrix Cloud integration. So we actually have a lot of customers that use ControlUp today in the Citrix Cloud, but unfortunately the API that they made available for Citrix Cloud is not the exact same API that was for Citrix Zen Desktop or Citrix Virtual Desktop, I should say the new name. It's been out for a while. But that API, would have been great for vendors like us if it leveraged the same API and extended it. But unfortunately, that they weren't able to make that work. So it took a while for them to build a new API. So we're going to have that. You still can run our agent in the VM. So as I said, we have customers doing Citrix Cloud today and getting a lot of value of it. But for those final piece, a few additional metrics, we have that coming in the near term. And we're working on also the next evolution of our console. We call it Solve. So that's a really big step for us. We hope to have that in time for Synergy. And I think that's going to be really exciting. We're moving our real-time console from a Windows app to a web app. And that actually opens up a lot of additional possibilities for us. And Trent, I don't know if you want to talk about what you're working on right now for that little show you're going to next month. You want to tease that a little?
Sure. Yeah, hopefully we'll have something exciting to announce. I come from a healthcare background, and so working for ControlUp, I get the ability to go to events like HIMSS, and one of the big vendors at HIMSS is Epic, and we're hoping to have something available for HIMSS at Epic, HIMSS with Epic, and that will be something exciting. So if you're going to HIMSS, please stop by and see what we'll have ready for you then.
Good. And Doug, I know healthcare is a really big vertical for you guys. There were a lot of healthcare customers at Disrupt, and there was a healthcare panel, which was a really, really interesting session there that you guys had on the main stage. So that's, I think, an exciting thing that we're working on. Epic is obviously one of the biggest EMR vendors in North America. So we're really excited about that work that we're doing that we hope to have in time for HIMSS as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, healthcare is huge for us. It sets up healthcare, it just sets up perfectly for what remoting does, and for a thin client type of solution. I hate that word too, thin client, but darn it sticks, right? It's
yeah.
What else do you explain it? The
edge device. Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. So, although when I came to IGEL, I championed getting rid of that darn phrase, but anyway. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. It's always a pleasure to chat, and to let those guys my listeners know, we chatted for about a half an hour, 45 minutes prior to the call, and poor Trent had to listen to Barry and I chat for a while. But so he probably had no clue what we were talking about. So always fun.
Yeah,
always fun.
Metaframe, what is that? That's
Metaframe. Is that what we were chatting about? Metaframe.
Metaframe, presentation server, WinFrame, all the old names.
Yeah, we should have a T-shirt with all those names on it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That'd be cool. You can throw it in your cool service thing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the exact same thing.
I'll buy it. Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you so much. And for those who want to learn more, where do they need to go? Throw some links at us.
Go to ControlUp.com. You can download our free trial. As Trent said, it's just a executable that you run, creates an NRAM database, all the historical data stored in the cloud, very easy to set up. You want to get the IGEL integration bits, you go to controlup.com/controlup-IGEL. Trent's got a great blog there, really steps you through everything that you need to know. In fact, I think after this, once, Doug, you make the podcast available, we'll probably add a link to the podcast to that blog as well.
Perfect. Absolutely. And don't forget controlup.com/controlup-IGEL. That's what you want to see. I'm going to go check that out. I didn't know you have that. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. Have a great day.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. You too.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, that concludes another episode of DABCC Radio. I'm really happy to have ControlUp and my friend Barry and Trent on the line with us. Great stuff. I love what they're doing. I love what they're doing with IGEL. Of course, I'm a little biased there, but even take off the IGEL hat, it's really cool to see what folks are doing to extend the endpoint, right? It's not just about fixing the back end. It's about extending the endpoint. The endpoint doesn't need fixed. IGEL fixed it. But it definitely, to be able to monitor and see that experience, that's just adding huge value to the endpoint. And I'll absolutely love it. So, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to share with the world, with my audience, what you guys are doing. And folks, don't forget, controlup.com/controlup-IGEL, IGEL. And that's it. On that note, I will call this an episode, and thanks everyone for joining. I hope you've had a good, pleasurable time. Thank you all. Thank you.
CC?
DABCC.
Say it again. DABCC.
DABCC.
Can you say it again? DABCC.
DABCC.
How about DABCC?
DABCC.
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 DABCC.